Alright, sorry it took so long for me to upload the video this evening. I recorded it, but there was no sound, so I am going to try this again. Alright, so week 2, day 1, 24. List the factors of 24 and 15, circle the composite number. So I'm listing all the factors of 24. Have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, all make 24. 1 times 15 and 3 times 15 make 15. So if I circle my composite numbers, which means numbers that can be multiplied by more than one in themselves, is 24, 12, 8, 4, and 6. And for 15, it's just 15. So a number that is neither prime nor composite would be the number 1. Why is it neither prime nor composite? Because it doesn't have enough factors to be prime, and it definitely isn't divisible by more than 1. Okay, look at number 2. Compare 3/3 and 1 by drawing models to prove your thinking. So I drew 2 models that were roughly the same size. I split this one into thirds to represent 3/3. And this model, I shaded it in to show that 1 whole was there. So this proves that 3/3 is equal to 1. For number 3, Tony earns $15 for each lawn he mows. Last week he mowed 8 lawns. He spent $22 on gas for his mower. Which expression below could be used to find out how much profit Tony earned last week? Okay, so the first thing I have to figure out is how much he made for each lawn that he cut. So it would be 15 times 8, right? But then to figure out his profit, which is how much he made after he spent money on the cost that it took to have his business, which was $22 of gas. So that means I'm going to multiply those first and then subtract the $22 to figure out his profit. So B would be the correct answer. Number 4. All right, it says complete the table. I do know that 1 kilometer or kilometer, kilo meaning 1,000, is 1,000 meters. So if I have 9 kilometers or kilometers, then I have 9,000 meters. 3 would be 3,000, 10 would be 10,000. Half would be half of 1,000. What's half of 1,000? It would be 500. Okay, and 25 would be 25,000. Week 2, day 2. Which is the best estimated product of 37 and 23? So I estimated 37 to 40 and 23 to 20. When I multiply 4 times 2, that gives me 8, and then I have 2 zeros there for 100, so 800. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this. It's the exact same number, but instead of estimating, I'm going to solve, and I used 2 different methods. I used lattice. So I drew my box. Remember that when I draw my box, I split my boxes diagonally from top right to bottom left, and then I multiply. Remember that this box is split. The top is tens and the bottom is ones place, right? Okay, so 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 3 is 6, so 0, 10, 6 ones. 3 times 7 is 21, so 2 in the tens place, 1 in the ones, and 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 in the tens, in the ones, and 0 in the tens. Okay, and then what I do is I add up my diagonal boxes. Okay, so this is 1. 9 plus 2 is 11, plus 4 is 15, carry 1. 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 1 more is 8, and then 0, so 851. The next strategy says I did the same thing, except for this time I used area model. So I just took 4 windows, and I'm just going to multiply. So I took 30 and 7, so I distributed 37, and then I took 20 and 3, so I distributed 23. So 20 times 7 is 140, 20 times 30 is 600. 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 times 30 is 90. I added up my partial products and that still gave me 851. So let's look at our estimate over here. I have 800 as an estimate and 851 as my actual product, and that is within reason. So this helps me to know if my answer is reasonable or not. In this case, my answer was reasonable. Okay, use either equal or does not equal to complete. So 8 times 4 would be 32. So let's look over here. I have 8 times 2, which is 16, and then I have an 8 times 2 over here, which is 16. And if I add those together, then that would give me 32, but this has a multiplication sign. So this does not equal 32. It does not equal the same. Okay, so this case I have 400, let me erase that so you guys can see that. That was from me doing this the first time. Okay, so 480 divided by 4. So one thing I could do is distribute 400 and divide it by 4, and then 80 and divide it by 4, but this is an 8. It's not an 80. So this does not equal, they do not equal the same. Okay, 85 times 7. Okay, so what I could do is take 80 and multiply it by 7, and then 5 and multiply it by 7, and I can see that that happened here, so these two are equal. Label my number line. So the first thing I did was I labeled my number line from 0 to 1, and then I started plugging away at my fractions. Okay, so what I needed to do was split my number line into fourths so that I could have 4 sections that were about the same. They should be equal, but you know, I'm just eyeballing and looking at it, so they're not exactly perfect. So this is about a fourth. Halfway between 0 and 1 is 2/4, and then 3/4 is between 2/4 and 1 whole. So let's look at my symbols to compare. So 3/4 is greater than 0 because it's to the right of 0. 1 whole is greater than 3/4 because it's to the right of 3/4. And 2/4 is less than 3/4 because it's to the left of 3/4. Week 2, day 3. I was about to say that right the first time. Okay, here we go. So let's look. I have 309, and I'm using 2 strategies to divide. So I have 309, and I'm going to divide by 7, and I'm going to use area model. So what I did was I took a rectangle to represent 309. So now I'll look at just the first 2 numbers, which is 30. And 7 times 4 gets me to 28, but I need a 3-digit number, not just a 2-digit number. I don't just need 28. I need a 0 back there, so I'm going to add that to my factor. So I'm going to NX a 0 here, and that makes 40. So 7 times 40 would be 280. And now I subtract from 309. When I subtract, I get 29. Okay, so again, same factor that I used before with multiplying 7 times 4 gave me 28. So 7 times 4 is 28, so I write my 28. So I took 280 away from 309. I took 28 out of 309, and now I have 1 left over. So I add up my partial quotients, and that gives me 44, remainder 1. Okay, my second strategy I used is partial quotient. So I'm going to look, and I see again that I can pull 4 groups of 7 out of 30, and that would give me 28. But I need to make this a 3-digit number so that I could plug away at it. So I'm going to make it 40. So 7 times 40 gives me 280. I subtract, that gives me 29. Again, I can multiply 7 times 4, and that gives me, I did something wrong there, 28. There we go. That gives me 28, and when I subtract, my remainder is 1. So I add up my partial quotients, which is 40 and 4, which gives me 44, and my remainder is 1. So I just rewrite it up at the top. It's like that, 44, remainder 1. Okay, looking at number 2, list all the factors of each number below. Circle the prime factor. So for 21, I have 1, 3, 7, 21. 3 and 7 are prime. For 9, I have 1, 3, and 9. 3 is my prime factor there. Remember, I do not circle any 1s because they're neither prime nor composite. For 24, I have 1, 24, 2, 12, 3, and 8, and then I have 4 and 6. Okay, so 2 and 3 are my only prime numbers for 24. And for 16, I have 1, 16, 2, 8, and 4. And my only prime number is 3. Number 4, it says solve using order of operations, show all steps. So we're going to learn this next week. We're going to be talking about order of operations, so this is a preview. It's groupings, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. I know that most of you guys learned this in 4th grade, so this should not be difficult. This should be review. So looking here, I can already see I have division first, so I'm going to divide. 48 divided by 4 is 12. I rewrite the rest of my problem, minus 5 plus 9. Okay, I draw a line under the problems that I'm starting to work. So now I only have subtraction and addition, and I solve those depending on which one comes first, from left to right. So because I have subtraction first, from left to right, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to subtract. So 12 minus 5 is 7, and then I bring down my plus 9. So now I have 7 plus 9, and that gives me 16. So my equation adds up to 16. Number 4, order from least to greatest. So my smallest number is 87 hundredths because it doesn't even have a whole. Okay. If I look, I can see that 5 is also a smaller number than the other two numbers because these numbers have a little bit more with them than this 5 does. Okay, so that's 5 would go here. Looking again, I could annex a 0 to help me to determine which one of these numbers is greater or less. So because when I annex the 0, I get 5 and 3/100ths here, but this number is 5 and 3/10ths, or 5 and 30/100ths to make it even. Let me close that door for me. Okay, so looking to see, I can see that 3 is less than 30, so this number goes in front of that number there. Week 2, day 4. Again, I have order from greatest to least, then add. So I had 444 plus 44 and 4/10ths. I annexed a 0. I annexed 2 zeros here just so I can line up every number. It makes it easier to order them and then add. So now I have 44 and 4/10ths, and then I annexed a 0. The next number that I had that was smaller was 4 and 44/100ths, and then my last one was 4/10ths. Notice that I annexed zeros a couple of times just so that all of my numbers would line up correctly with each other. So I had 4 here, 3 4s is 12, so I drop my 2, carry my 1. 3 4s again is 12, plus 1 is 13, carry 1. 2 4s is 8, plus 1 is 9, and then I have a 4 there by itself, so 493 and 24/100ths is my answer. Okay, number 2, Brian says the answer is 13. Ricardo disagrees. He thinks the answer is 1. Who's correct? Well, let's look. So I take my expression and I rewrite it. 8 times 6 divided by 6 times 2 minus 3. Well, if I remember GEMDAS, and now I remember this is groupings, exponents, multiplication and division, depending on what came first, and addition and subtraction, depending on which one of those comes first. Okay, so let's look. I have a grouping. So here's my grouping. It's 6 times 2. So that is what I'm going to solve before I solve anything else. So I underline it just to show that I can solve it, that I've solved it. So 6 times 2 is 12, and now I rewrite the entire expression all over again. 6 times 6 divided by 12 minus 3. Okay, so now I look and I have multiplication, division, and subtraction. Well, which one comes first? Well, multiplication or division can come next depending on which one came first. So multiplication came first. So now I'm going to multiply 8 times 6. That gives me 48. So now I rewrite the problem again. 48, I'm going to bring down everything. Divided by 12 minus 3. Okay, I look again. And I see that I have division again. So I'm going to divide. 48 divided by 12 is 4. So I'm going to write my 4, and then I bring over my minus 3. So there's my minus 3. Now 4 minus 3 is 1. So my answer is actually 1, and Ricardo is correct. Okay, let's look at number 3. Erin is reading a 51-page biography about Abe Lincoln. It takes her 3 minutes to read a page. At this rate, how long will it take her to read the entire book? So if she's got 51 pages about Abe Lincoln and it takes her 3 minutes per page, at this rate, how long will it take her to read the entire book? So let's figure that out. 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15, so it will take her about 153 minutes. Okay. All right, Erin needs to finish the book in 5 days. About how many minutes should she read each night to be certain she finishes the book by the 5th day? Okay, so if it's 51, I'm going to round that to 50 because it says about, okay, and she needs to read it in 5 days. So I'm going to divide, and when I divide, I get 10. Okay, so that means she needs to read 10 pages a day to be ready to finish her book in 5 days. I hope you guys have a good evening. I hope this was helpful. See you later.